Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan with your Hollywoke hot take. Expose on Bleeding Fool. The Whisper Network exists and seeks to destroy male comic prose. Um, Now, this is a parody. I got this on Archive today, but this is a parody of Bleeding Cool, which is a sort of a geek site. And but the I read the article. The article seems to be legit. Many of the women promoting the cancellation of men in comics and demanding they post the recent empty promise known as the Comics Pledge are in fact hypocrites. In this article, I'm going to present evidence of lies, collusion, rumor spreading, and in my opinion, defamation and contract interference. This is who's Penny Parker. Oh, so this is a woman reporting this. I personally know that they've colluded for years to take down men, specifically those with conservative politics and philosophies. This is an ongoing coordinated effort. How do I know this? Because I obtained access to their private Facebook group. This is part one of the Hipcropolis Hipcropolis leaks. So apparently this is the first part of the story. So I can't read the whole thing, obviously, but the so-called Comic Book Whisper Network, which has been dismissed as a conspiracy theory since 2016, is real, and I have hundreds of screenshots to prove it. The Whisper Network has been targeting men to destroy their careers and use their connections in the comic book media to do so. And three, the Whisper Network members have acted unprofessionally and unethically at best. At worst, they have engaged what I believe could be illegal behavior. After reading this article, I agree. Tortious interference comes to mind. I'm not sure if that's illegal, but that's certainly something that you could be sued over. So I tried to post this article in comic books on Reddit, and it was immediately flagged and kicked out because they called it Comicsgate BS. But I mean, she has posts and Twitter things to back up her claims. This is the private group, Comic Book Women. And you could see some of the members here: Gail Simone, Zoe Quinn, Alex DeCampi, Magdalene Francis, Heidi McDonald, Tamara Bonvillain. Bonvillain? And I cannot pronounce that first name. It looks like Marguerite Scott, I guess. So the only one in that list that I know is Heidi McDonald, who reviewed one of my comics back in the day, very unfavorably. Weirdly compared an issue of The Travelers, which is a fun fantasy adventure comic. She compared it to porn. And that was the last time I decided to have any dealings with Heidi McDonald after that. That was totally a hyperbolic statement in my view. And there was no nudity in the comic. There's no sex in the comic. It's just a fun, funny fantasy comic, not unlike Pandemonium on the Webcomic Factory. And she just savaged it for no reason, I felt. But, I'm biased. But, I mean, this, in general, goes back to the idea of intersectional feminism. And it's run amok. I mean, it's just run amok. I mean, you've got this woman here, Penny Parker, who's clearly not doing that, but you've got these other women. They're obsessed. They're possessed. I describe it as a possession by intersectional feminism, because they're constantly the victims. Everybody in intersectional feminism is a victim, and if they're not a victim, they seek to be a victim. And the moment they're a victim, it's just like, oh, leave me alone. You're just such a misogynist. You're this, you're that. There was no reason that these women and women like them had to take over Marvel Comics and feminize all the comics that were aimed at men. There's no reason for that. Marvel and DC want to keep the printing presses running 24/7. They could have added another 50 titles of female comic characters. But why don't they do it? I think the reason is clear. Their ideas are terrible. But here's why their ideas are terrible. Their ideas are terrible because they're obsessed with revenge and ideology. This is an ideology that seeks revenge. It seeks to balance the scales because you, for whatever reason, took from me. That's the way they see themselves. Because they see themselves as the victim, they have to have had something taken from them. And whether that's real or imagined, they concocted in their brain. So, the entire ideology of intersectional feminism, the whole idea of the patriarchy, of white fragility, it's this idea that, because of your race, you took from me. It is Marxism, but with a racial component to it. Jordan Peterson talks about how communism ran through what eventually became the Soviet Union and the Ukraine. And he said, you would have this village full of relatively prosperous and productive people, but there would always be a few at the bar, that were just scumbags. They never did any work. They drank, they caroused, they were bitter, angry people who were jealous of everybody, but they didn't do any work. And then one day, the communists would come to town with their academics and their highfalutin ideas, and they would say to these scumbags, hey, do you know why you're not prosperous? It's because those productive people over there took from you. And you should take it back because they're the bourgeoisie and you deserve what they have equally. And so these people rose up and they took it and they destroyed all the productive people. Look at Marvel and DC. It's not productive anymore, in my view. It's been destroyed. It's been destroyed by a group of rabble-rousers possessed by this ideology and they use it as a substitute for talent. Their bullying becomes the only thing they know. Their revenge corrupts them and rots them intellectually. They have nothing to offer now. But, patriarchy. Men. But that's not a story. And consequently, when nobody reads it, they fall back on the same thing. They only have one tool in the toolbox. Well, these comics aren't selling because toxic men won't buy them. And so they go to schools to teach men when they're young that this is what they have to like. That's what this is all about. These women don't deserve to be in comics. They don't deserve your money or support. And they probably don't have it anyway. And they probably won't in the future. Because this trend is gonna end. And when it does, this list will be the list of people, oh boy, avoid them. Remember those guys? Oh yeah, they canceled people. Bye-bye. Ladies, there's only one way out of this. There's only one way out of this intellectual rot that you have put yourself in. You can come clean. You could be honest. And you could say, you know what? Yes, I was a part of this. I canceled people. I went after men. I was a man hater, and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. This is wrong. One of you, I know one of you in there, maybe two or three, maybe there's a spark of goodness inside you. And maybe, like in a comic book, you can be a hero, a real hero, and come forth and confirm this and say, you know what? This isn't just comic book BS and Comicsgate BS. And I'm not just going to stand here while you destroy people's careers anymore. I'm going to step up. This is true. And I'm sorry. And I don't want to be a part of this anymore. That's what a hero would do. If you knew anything about heroes. Let's see if you do.